Who would you be if you dropped all of your identities? Gosh. Hi, my name is Jewel. I am a singer-songwriter, a visual artist, and I also work in behavioral health. Being able to find my inner self has had lots of iterations, times where I lost contact with it and times where I've been more in touch with it, and it's also been a relationship that has deepened. When I was young, I'm kind of audio. I also have synesthesia, and so when I shut my eyes, I do see colors, and when I sing, I see colors and shapes. I remember being very young and hearing my mom call my name, and there were all these colors. Then when she said, Jewel, I was like, that's me. That's the name for these colors that I see inside my body. Another one was when I moved out at 15. I was living in a house with an abusive dad. My mom had left. I had been reading philosophy at the time, been looking at the idea of nature versus nurture, and I was peeling an orange one day. I realized that my nurture, the way I was raised, caused me to form personality traits like a low self-esteem, being guarded, not trusting adults, the list goes on. And that became my exterior. It became the way that I protected myself from the world. What I realized is I spent all of my life identifying with the peel. I spent zero time thinking about the fruit. And I realized at that moment that I really had to spend serious time dedicating what I call going down and in. Whenever I have a problem with people or I'm angry or these things are going on, that's all a distraction. I have to go down and in and understand, why am I letting that make me angry? Why am I perceiving that as I'm worthless? And that's when I really started to be able to get my life to change. What do you have to ignore to keep believing what you believe? When I was about 18, I was homeless because I wouldn't have sex with a boss. He refused to give me my paycheck. I tried to get other jobs, but I was having panic attacks. I was becoming agoraphobic. I was shoplifting a lot. My life was really grinding to a halt. And I was very lonely. And I realized I kind of deserved to be lonely because nobody actually knew me. And my desire to connect became stronger than my desire to be safe. And I decided to do something that was very radical for me, which was to say the truth out loud, expose myself to people.
This is Jewel.
Hi.
This is a place called The Interchange. This is what you started off, what, about a year and a half ago?
Oh, yes.
I found a coffee shop that was going out of business. I asked them if they could stay open for one more month, and she agreed. Her name was Nancy. And I said, can I keep the door money if I bring people in and you keep the food and coffee? We agreed to that. But my very first show, 2 surfers showed up, and I sang these poor surfers for 5 hours. I sang to them about the most honest, gut-wrenching, vulnerable truths about myself. I read poems, the whole 9 yards. And these 2 surfers cried the whole time, and I cried on stage. And we hugged afterwards because it was such an honest, real, authentic experience we just had all had together. And for me, that was when that really became a powerful thing. I knew that would be a life path for me, that I would be safer in the world the more honest I was instead of the more guarded I was. When have you experienced a profound sense of disconnection from others, and what did you learn from it? I think one of the most surefire ways to disconnect me from others is shame. It instantly isolates me. It instantly makes me feel separate from. For me, shame feels like a real tightness and a denseness. It just feels like I'm lost in a fog. It feels like I can't see what I did wrong. I get disoriented feeling. And so when I notice I'm agitated, when I'm noticing I'm getting triggered, I just soften, I breathe. My posture's changing, my blood pressure's changing, different biochemicals being released. My vascular system dilates, blood pressure comes down. And then I just need to listen with no agenda. And so that really helps me. It helps me when I'm feeling shame to stop and go, okay, this is a feeling in my body. How do I want to redirect this? And so I turn it into a river in my mind. Where do I want this energy in this water to go? That gets me back into behavior and gets me into, okay, now what am I going to do about it? And then I can start to move on. What action do you want to take but don't feel ready yet? Let me think of a good way to talk about it because I haven't said it out loud. There's an aspect of my personality that I think stems from perfectionism. It's a way of trying to control my environment. I'm working on an art exhibit right now, and that means I have about 5 billion decisions to make. And I'm trying to decide if where this QR code will take you to Spotify or will it take you to a link tree. And I realized that I was wanting to step in, I was wanting to manage it, control it, figure out what the most perfect solution was, and that it was a complete waste of my energy. What is your most consistent and greatest fear? Being loved makes me scared. That's scary to me. That's a really vulnerable, dangerous thing for me. You don't grow up being abandoned and being abused, and what happened in my divorce, being loved was really painful consistently. And so it is really good to check in on that. It was really important to heal. It was really important to take the time to heal. I have learned with time that the truth always wins. The uncomfortable parts of my personality, the uncomfortable parts of life are true, whether we live in denial of them or not. And I've spent plenty of time in my life denying the truth, wishing it wasn't so, trying to pretend it wasn't so. And all it cost me was years, and then I still had to deal with the truth. And I actually paid a much bigger price. When I was about 29, I realized my mother wasn't who I thought she was. She was my manager. I had such a strong need for my mother's love that I was willing to ignore what other people would have perceived as red flags. I wanted her love much more than I wanted the truth. And that cost me. It cost me a lot of money. It cost me a lot of years. It cost me a lot of heartbreak. And so I have a saying now called the truth wins. I want to see the truth as quick as I can. It's actually a daily mantra for me as I pray for the eyes to see the truth. Power is perception. Power is being able to perceive. The more I can perceive, the more powerful I am. That has been an absolute game changer and life changer for me in my life. What is your most consistent and greatest hope? My most consistent passion is to connect with people. I noticed that I enjoyed this ability to connect to people when I was pretty young. I don't really know why it happened or what caused it to happen. It's just like I would see this yellow color, and it corresponded to a feeling in my body, and it corresponded to a feeling they had. And I just knew that it was special. It felt like being around a fire. It felt like being warmed. As well as, the physical abuse of my dad. My dad went on to heal. He got sober in his 60s. I had done my growth, and we met as two completely different people. That was an unexpected surprise in my life. My son gets to know my dad. It's like a gift I never thought I'd be given. When I was discovered, I made myself a promise that my number one job was to learn how to be a happy whole human, not a human full of holes. My number two job was to be a musician. And I'm very proud that I'm 49 years old, and I've never let that promise down. That went really far. That is an excellent question. Whoever wrote these questions has done a lot of work and a lot of research and should be very, very proud. I've never heard other people talk about this, so this is really exciting.